the Center of Commercial Law Studies, which is a center who specializes in commercial law, within which banking and finance falls, is within the School of Law, and we are 68 full-time academics, and on top of that, our member of staff the group gets enhanced by other members of staff from the School of Economics and Finance, who sometimes deliver lectures within our programs. The program every year has had a diverse number of nationalities being represented, both among members of staff and students. You can easily tell that from my strong English accent, but basically it is a very lively and rich study environment where usually we have more or less 85 different nationalities represented among the community that you will encounter at Queen Mary. And basically we attract a number of students from different backgrounds, and some of them are already well-established professionals. I have, in some of my courses, I've been teaching partners of international law firms, and also some students who have recently graduated from university. So you have the full spectrum, and you have also this combination between civil law, common law, and we cover the whole globe. So basically you have people from the Americas, from the African continent, Asia, Europe, Oceania. So basically we have this vibrant diversity, and also civil law, common law, Islamic law. So we have this richness which enhances the debates that we conduct on the topics that we cover. And just to, what do we offer? I am convinced that in banking and finance, we are an undisputed leader in Europe, and probably in the world. We are definitely specifically in banking and finance, without doubt, I would say in the top 3, because what we offer is a world-class curriculum in banking and finance, which is not only, you will see from the couple of slides to come, not only because of us and what we do, and we are at the forefront of developments. You will see that I will briefly show you a slide when I present the whole team, that basically we provide advice to some of the key international institutions, to some of the key think tanks and law firms as well. So before we go into that, the question is why you should be studying banking and finance. Basically, it's a very broad, covers a very broad spectrum of topics and possibilities, and these are just a couple of news recently reported on the Financial Times about, for example, the whole development of fintech, on the back of that financial regulation of FinReg, and the issues of electronic currencies, digital coins, the issue of whether, to start with, what are they? Are they an asset? Are they a security? Are they a currency? And what's the value? What's the role? And how should we regulate them? Or issues such as the role of financing, and on this particular slide, what I'm representing is the role of private equity in M&A transactions, where, for example, basically transactions for 42 billion were conducted in the first half of 2019, or how there are some private equity funds that at the moment they have one fund alone has more than 400 billion of assets under management. So what I'm telling you is some of these private equity funds are bigger than countries, or bigger than many countries altogether. So this is kind of just an example of how big this industry has become, and that opens a whole array of questions of what happens if something goes wrong, what happens if we need to bail them out, how are we going to regulate them, how we're going to supervise them. So there are many questions, and these are just some examples of the issues that we can be addressing or covering throughout the year, depending on the topics that you will be choosing. This is just to briefly introduce you the team of experts that you will probably come across, depending again on your module selection. And there are many more which are probably not core specific to banking and finance. But here what you have is some of these experts, which include Professor Ioannis Kokkoris, who is in the course
Rodrigo,
today. Yes,
Rodrigo,
Ioannis?
really sorry to interrupt you. The slides on the back, they are not showing. So you may want to reshare the screen. I don't know if the others can see the slides. I cannot see the slides.
You cannot see none of the slides so far?
I have not seen any of the slides so far. Okay, perfect. Here we are.
Can you see them now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. I will appreciate it if you could have let me know before, but no worries.
I was trying to figure out if the building you were referring to is the Queen Mary main building.
Okay, that was
the Bank of Petrova or not.
That was the Bank of England.
Okay.
Sorry, apologies.
These are the members of staff, basically the community that we have. This is what we do, world-class curriculum in banking and finance, Bitcoin, private equity, and our staff.
See, I stopped you at the right moment when you're showing us. You see?
Very good. So basically, here you have some of the key members of staff who will be joining us who are among us without the year. And basically, Ioannis is here. I don't know, I'm on presentation mode, so I'm not sure whether Catherine is with us on the call at the moment. But Catherine was also going to join us today.
She will join.
Okay, and basically what we are dealing is, this is what I was telling you. Basically, we are at the forefront of international consulting, and these are some of the advisory roles that we have had with the House of Lords here in the UK, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the OECD, the IFC, the African Development Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, European Central Bank, governments, central banks, etc. So we end up being at the forefront of developments. We are involved in drafting some of the legislation. We are involved in drafting some of the legislation, some of the policy papers, and as a result of that, we gain some in the research that we conduct. We gain some advanced know-how, and then we share this in class, and we many times interact with students and try to involve them in those projects that we do. But this was mainly just to showcase a little bit who we are and what we do. And these are some of the guest speakers that join us on regularly. We try to bring them pretty much every single year. And then you will see, for example, those on the photos are the one on the top corner with the gray suit and the yellow tie. That's Lee Buchheik. He used to be a senior partner at Cleary Gottlieb. He has just retired, and he has become a visiting professor at Queen Mary. But he has been involved in advising governments on how to restructure the debt, including Greece, Russia, Pakistan, many of them, you name them. Then just below Lee Buchheik, you see Chiara Silioli. She's the General Counsel of the European Central Bank. On their side, on the top, you have Diego Devos. Diego Devos is the General Counsel of the Bank for International Settlements. And below him, you have Rhoda Wicks-Brown, who is the General Counsel of the International Monetary Fund. These are very good friends of the house, and these are people who usually come and deliver lectures within the courses. You also have people like, for example, one of my courses, Ioannis can talk about the other one, but for example, I co-teach with Ioannis corporate finance. In that module, we have partners from Skadden Arps and Hogan and Lovells, who comes to deliver some guest lectures. Or, for example, in one of my other courses, the ones on financial distress, we have partners from Freshfields who come and deliver some of the regular lectures. But this is just to enhance the team of academics with whom you will be engaged on a regular basis. And then why banking and finance? I think that basically because some just general bullets, money, oil the wheels of the economy, because of trade and investment. Finance is an indicator of development. The importance of financial intermediation, the access to money, financing, and the capital markets in general, because the payment systems is part of banking and finance. And you might not realize, but if anyone did an online transaction today, or if any of you withdraw money from an ATM, that has taken place through the banking and finance system. Why? Because banking and finance facilitates the efficient allocation of resources and also tries to work on issues such as information asymmetry. And basically, because banking and finance is at the core of the good days and the bad days, or the sunny days and the rainy days. In good times, we have a lot of corporate finance activity, mergers and acquisition, project finance, initial public offerings. And when things don't go as planned, we have the restructurings, the insolvency procedures. So all this is why banking and finance is so relevant and topical pretty much all the time. Why London? Because it's the financial capital of the world. It has a specificity and a set of valuable skills that you can gain studying in London. And English is the language of the capital markets, and the English legal systems have a couple of things which are very, very relevant, which are party autonomy and the sanctity of contract, which is achieved through the governing law. And that's why most international financial transactions end up using English law as the governing law. And many of the intra-European governmental relations end up being governed, despite the fact that the UK is not part of the Euro area, they still end up being governed by English law. And finally, why Queen Mary? Excellence in teaching, top quality research and innovation, the exceptional learning environment, the diversity that you can get, the cutting edge of extracurricular activities, as I was just recently referring to some of our guest speakers, or the things that we do, for example. And again, I usually try not to talk in hypotheticals. I can easily, and I'm happy to engage with some of you in the conversation with actual examples. But for example, I am at the moment involved in restructuring the debts of an African country, and I'm advising the government on that. And like that, each one of us has some of these projects which enhance and enrich the teaching, our research, etc. And basically, bottom line, I think that basically all these combine among us, the international culture, the dynamism, the guest speakers, the projects, the research initiatives, etc. All this creates a very vibrant environment that you can benefit from. And finally, we are also one of the few institutions who are members of the Russell Group in the UK. And just to conclude with this one, because I don't want to do a lengthy presentation, I think that it's more important for you to have the opportunity to ask your questions. There are a lot of career opportunities. There's a dedicated team that will assist and help in the whole job search process, helping you how to draft a cover letter, how to improve your CV, etc. But besides that, there are regular events organized, and then we have some already lined up internships that basically the job opportunities could end up being endless. And these are just some of the examples where some of our graduates have ended up working, or with whom they have done an internship in the recent years. Allen & Overy, Linklaters, Clifford Chance, Freshfields, Bank of England, IMF, Bloomberg, etc. So I think that probably I will just park it there. I don't know if Ioannis or Catherine will like to add something something briefly, or whether we should just go straight into the Q&A. And I think that Petrova, I think that I don't know if Ioannis or Catherine, do you want to add any comments?
No, nothing from me. We can go to the Q&A if Catherine has nothing to add, because I think our attendees would be able to get more information from us and ask direct questions they have in mind on the Q&A.
Okay.
But Catherine,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think jumping into the Q&A would be great.
Thank you. If we can just read the questions out and then give the answers verbally, that way we can share them unless they are private queries of the students. But I'd just like to encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A, and we have time to deal with them. And we'll start with the first question. Somebody has asked, will the modules in January 2021 remain as mentioned for September 2020 on the QMUL website? So I think probably quite a lot of students will be wondering, okay, if they defer and start in January, will they be able to access the same modules as students that have started in September? To the panel.
Jan, you're muted, Jan.
I'm sorry.
Good afternoon.
Yes, hello?
Yeah.
Someone...
Oh, sorry, did you, should I repeat the question? I'm not sure, did you hear?
I heard the question, but someone just said good afternoon. So I don't know if
someone was going to ask a live question. That was my understanding.
Yes, exactly. So I
Okay.
have to take the live question first, because I don't want to interrupt the person who wanted to come in, and then I will answer the one.
Okay, no problem.
Shall we? Yes, please. You may want to ask a question, because I think you stepped in. I don't know who it is, but please do ask the question. I will take silence as a no. Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's probably best if we just read the questions and then we can answer them. It's worked pretty well on some of the other sessions. So yeah, let's, that way we can just move forward with them quite quickly. Thank you.
Okay. So will the modules in January 2021 remain same as mentioned for September 2020 and the QMUL website? What we are striving to do at this point is to ensure that whoever defers to 2021 January or joins as a direct entry, applies for a January entry, they will actually be able to attend as many modules as possible, which would be the same as the ones who started in September. The January 2020 modules, the January 2020 program, which will have an 8 months or 9 months duration until August. And Petrova, correct me here if sorry, I'm saying it's not entirely accurate. We have a 9-month duration. Students will be able to follow the modules with the same group of individuals who have studied in September, when they will be running from January until March. And for modules which run between September and January, they will be able to get access to materials which have been already pre-recorded, which will be running between September and December, and they will actually be able to follow that content there. Of course, all of us are going to be there for all students, whether you start in September or you defer to January or you start in January. We will all be there to provide support and hold your hands if you do face some difficulty in the content. But our aim and what we are striving to do at this point is ensure that somebody who joins in September and somebody who comes in January will have the same experience as students at CCLS. Happy to elaborate more, Petrova.
Thank you.
Probably you want to highlight that we are adding another semester, which is the one for shorter modules. So basically, usually we only run 2 terms. Term 1 that goes from September till December, and term 2 that runs from January till the end of March, probably early April. Now we are adding another one that runs in June, and I think it's part of July as well. And so basically, you might not have the exact same modules that run in September, but they will be an online version will be available and in some format. And then what you will have 2 additional semesters to choose modules from.
Petrova, also, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for people that are interested in which modules will be running, the best place to look for an up-to-date list is on the website. So if you go onto the Banking and Finance program and click on the modules, you will see the different terms, so the different semesters for the January and September, and there will be a list of the different modules and what will be running in which term. So there, for a concrete list, please do check the website. And if you do have any further questions, feel free to email our program office or myself, and we'll be able to help you further.
The next question is, how would you recommend us choose modules? I would also invite my colleagues here to step in. That's not a straightforward answer, because it depends on a number of things. It depends on the career progression you have already had. It depends on where you want to see your career going. It depends on what kind of modules you like. So if, for example, let's take the argument that you have been an in-house lawyer, you are an in-house lawyer now, and you'll be dealing a lot with financing issues. So you know that. You know this from your either previous studies or your practitioner's experience. What you may want to do on the LLM is add an additional element, an additional angle to your legal expertise, which then you can promote to future employers or within your own firm. So it depends on what do you want to get after that and where you are now. If you are an LLM student who does not have any law experience, so you actually now want to do the LLM and then have a solid qualification from a leading university to be able to actually get the job you dream of. Then, depending on what job that is, you need to tailor-make the modules to adapt to this type of job. So it varies to a large extent. I don't know if Katerina, Rodrigo, you want to come in on this.
Oh, the only thing I will add there is that that's a very tricky and very difficult question to answer because it's very personal. That depends, and I'm going to link this to another question that I saw there. We're talking about whether they can take, for example, another module from taxation. It depends how you want to structure your program, whether you want to, because there are some people that want to diversify and then take a little bit of different subject areas. There are people that have a very clear agenda and they know what they want to learn and they want to specialize and become kind of a niche expert in a specific area of the law. And bottom line is both answers are correct. And basically on that, there's no right or wrong. Once you come here and basically we can, once you have got a better feeling as what is that you might want to study, etc., then we can have a kind of a more personal discussion as to your module selection. But bottom line, I think that basically it is a very personal decision, and there are pros and cons on whether you want to diversify or specialize. And yes, you might be able, you can, depending on your module selection, is how you can structure your program, that you might take some credits which are outside of the specialization.
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's a bad thing, even if you already know specifically what specialization you want to do, to take one or perhaps even two modules that are outside that specialization, just out of interest. I think it's something that is useful to not go too niche either. I think perhaps another thing I might add is that it might be worth thinking whether you want to do more transactional or regulatory work. If you're interested in more sort of signing deals, working on sort of doing M&A deals, financing structures, etc. That's a different type of courses. You'll be more looking at M&A, corporate finance, law. If you're more interested in regulatory work, then there'll be other types of courses, financial regulations, etc. that might be interested. So it might be worth thinking of what type of lawyer you want to be as well.
Shall I move on? If the person who asked this question is not happy with the extent of our answer, would like to come back, please do so live so we can actually continue our discussion on each question. The next one is in relation to derivatives, how can students learn derivatives since we are not having the module for this academic year. This goes back to the point also that Rodrigo made in relation to tax. There is a possibility, and Petrova, correct me here, please, that you can take a module from outside the School of Law. So you can take some credits in another school, provided there is approval. Sorry, am I right?
No, not unless they're doing a joint program. Yeah, if you're doing one of the joint programs, you can take modules within the finance school. But if you're just studying, in the law, then you can have modules from outside your specialism, but not formally in another one of the schools, as far as I know. Yeah, but I'm sure if you do want to research more information within that area, then I'm sure the academics can sort of point you in the right direction, give you the right resources. We have extensive libraries and online resources for our students available for them to.
No, but coming back to the specific aspect of derivatives, this year we are not running the dedicated module on derivatives because basically we need to try to give as much contact time as possible and dissertation meetings, and then you will have the careers events. Then you could also have, but again, that all depends on your willingness to be engaged, because then you have the conferences that we organize, the special lectures that we organize, the end of term lectures, for example. Again, that will depend on many factors, and that also links to how many subjects can we access during a semester. And again, that's also relative, because the idea is for you need to complete 180 credits for the LLM if you are doing it on a full-time basis, and those 180 credits can be spread, again, depending when you start and how you want to organize your program, because since there will end up being the possibility of up to 3 semesters, you can choose how many you want to take, and that will also depend on the type of modules that you select, because some modules have 15 credits and some modules have 30 credits. So, and again, this year you will also have the possibility of not doing a dissertation and selecting more modules. So it pretty much depends on how you are going to structure your own program.
Then the Clara is asking whether there is a special course. I'm sorry, Clara, the dissertation to write, whether you have a dissertation to write, Rodrigo just answered, depending on, you may have to or you may not have to, depending on the program that you actually follow. Is there a special course or partnership with a course which prepares for the New York bar exam? I believe no, unless Rodrigo, Katriana, or Petrova correct me.
Can I just say that I'm just trying to find out the answer to that, because there is an academic within the school that is linked with the New York bar exam. So I will just email you back privately about that, Clara, because I have your details and confirm that with you later on today. Okay?
Clara, just as a background, we were developing 2 courses on US law. Sorry, 2 more courses which are specific towards the courses that have to be accredited, because basically we already have some issues on taxation, etc. But basically we were developing a specific courses and in conversation with Barbary, which are the ones that usually prepare for the exam. But I will leave Petrova to get back to you on that one. Yeah,
I will pick that up. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Petrova.
Yeah, no, I was just going to move on to the next question because somebody's asking, which most people want to know, is will the teaching all take place online? So I think, yeah, people are a bit uncertain, you know, how the delivery is going to be in September. So I know that for the first semester that we're offering a blended learning approach, and that is where students will have the option to do the modules online or will be able to have face-to-face lessons in our classrooms in London. And so obviously we've carefully thought out the COVID and this social distancing, but from January we are anticipating that we will be delivering our lessons all face-to-face. So initially, the first semester will be a blended approach, and then we will move forward to just a face-to-face teaching, unless obviously developments do not allow us to do that. I hope that answers the question. If anyone else would like
just
to.
One more point to add. The aim, at least for the first semester, because of the situation with COVID, will be exactly as Petrova put it, to offer a blended experience. But if we see that we are in a situation where we cannot meaningfully deliver teaching content face-to-face, then all teaching content will be done online, because we need to give the opportunity to everyone who cannot be here to attend the content. And then we will provide some face-to-face additional material or additional content, which will be for the ones who can actually be physically in London. So somebody who cannot physically be in London should not feel disadvantaged, because we will not disadvantage in any way someone who can come to London and somebody who cannot come to London. However, we would all want to see you in London and engage with you face-to-face if that becomes possible. So we are preparing for both conditionalities.
Yanni, let me see if I can add a little bit of clarity into that, because what we are aiming is to give you the best possible experience, and we are preparing for both scenarios. So the idea will be to try to do both, because we also realize that as the pandemic has kicked in, it has not picked every country at the same time. So there are some countries which are slightly more advanced in the cycle and others which are lagging behind in the cycle. Thank God, and hopefully they will never get the cycle. But the idea will be, because I've been talking to someone who has applied from Latin America and telling me, look, Rodrigo, I don't even know how am I going to get there because the airports are shut at the moment. Well, that's the idea of this blended environment, that you can start, for example, through online or distance learning, and then you will be able to join whenever you can. And in that way, for example, if the course has already started in London, you will be able to attend, let's say, the first 2 or 3 lectures online, and then you kind of come and join us on campus. But again, as Petrova and Yanni was saying, all this is dependent on several factors, because we don't know how things will unravel between now and the beginning of term, but we are planning for both scenarios.
Thank you, Professor. We will move on to the next question. So someone has asked, how many subjects can we study during the semester? So I think that's related to how many credits. And usually per semester would be about 60 credits. That's correct, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And they would either be 15 or 30 credit modules that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Will the January program duration be shortened to be compared to the September one? So in January, we're offering 2 streams. So there is the accelerated, which is the 9-month, and then there is the 12-month, which is the full year. So it'll be January right up until the end of the year. I'm assuming that's what you're asking.
If I can add to that, yes. Petrova, basically those that coming in January, basically they will do what, if you come in September, will be first term and second term. In the other way, you will do it the other way around. Your first term will be January till March, and then you can, if you want, you can do the dissertation in between. And then what used to be the first term now becomes your last term if you would have started in September. Sorry if that doesn't make sense, but it's basically there are 3 semesters and you take them, you start, let's say, in semester 2, then you do the dissertation, and then you can do what traditionally is semester 1. Now, in addition to that, we also have a 3rd semester. So probably that's why this now allows you to do an accelerated route. That's the one that Petrova was referring to. That will be a shorter LLM that I think it's 9 months, or you can do the traditional 12 months. You will have the same amount of credits. The only difference is that one will be kind of slightly more compressed than the other.
Thank you. Do you recommend any specific reading before you start the course? I know this is a popular question for students that want to get ahead. I suppose, especially in this COVID time, people may have more time. But bearing in mind, people haven't selected their modules, or they may think they know their modules. What would be your recommendation?
I have one.
Take that? Yeah.
I will have one. I will strongly encourage you to read the specialized financial press. That means the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal. These are the type of newspapers that are covering what is happening in our spectrum, banking and finance in general. And that will help you tremendously to be up to date with the latest developments. And also, that will also help you a lot to help you identify which are the main areas of international finance, international banking law that you are more keen on. And that will also facilitate you when selecting your modules. But that's something that will only help you enrich your general understanding of developments, and you will see that will facilitate you. It's helpful in all possible ways, because if you are not a native English speaker, to start getting familiarized to reading in English, and on top of that, what are the latest developments and what are the kind of hot areas in banking and finance.
Thank you. So a student has asked, are students allowed to have internship opportunities in law firms or banking sector? Will there be a compulsory internship or any help from Queen Mary? So I can definitely give you some advice in terms of the careers help that we offer our students. So at Queen Mary University of London, we do have a specialist careers team that deal only with our postgraduate law students. And a lot of them have worked in the legal profession, especially within the UK and the USA. And we set up lots of workshops and opportunities to develop your skill set, your job search, your CV, your resume, to be able to look for work. They also source work opportunities, and they share this amongst the postgraduate law students to apply for. Now, there isn't a compulsory internship element to our LLM programs because they're quite an intensive one-year program, but we do receive internship opportunities, mainly for when people have completed their program and which they can apply for. I'll let the academic lead though talk maybe a bit more, because they'll have a bit more insight into potential opportunities that may come their way for that program.
I can take that one, Petrova.
Thank you.
There are a number of opportunities throughout the year. And this depends on the ongoing issues of that particular year. There are a number of regularly established internships that basically every year they ask for our students. And there are other that are ad hoc. For example, this year, I've been approached by the EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is one of the Bretton Woods institutions. And I am leading there a project on debt restructuring, and 2 of my students joined the EBRD to work on this in this particular project, and this is pretty much a 6 to 8 months project. And that is just an example from what has been happening this year. And then there's another student of mine who is assisting on a project on financial innovation. But again, this depends on year by year, but there are always a pre-established number of career events. There's a pre-established number of internship opportunities. So we cannot guarantee something, but the answer is definitely yes.
And there's also a lot of high-profile guest speakers that come. There's a lot of events, so there's a lot of networking opportunities as well for you to sort of establish your network and get the opportunities that you need.
Thank you. If we can maybe go on to another question. Someone's asked, please can we explain the third term? Is this just for people who start in January? So I think they're asking about for the 12-month program for the January start, the last term they would be doing is it a dissertation or modules? Ioannis, do you know, are you able to clarify a little bit more on the third term?
I do not know whether students who start in September can still take advantage of the third term teaching, which is relevant mainly for the students who start in January.
Okay, yes.
This is something we can come back to you on an email. If you email us, we need to get some clarity, and anybody else who would like clarity on this issue.
I am pretty certain, Ioannis, that basically it is a third term that will be open for students because the dissertation has become optional in some of the specializations.
Yeah.
So the idea is if you start in September, you can take modules in term 1, 2, or this new term 3. And in the same way, if you join in January, you can take in what is term 2, which is January, which for those entrants in January will be term 1. And this is where it becomes a little bit convoluted. And then that new term 3, which for you, those entering in January, will be term 2. And that's why if you do the compressed or the accelerated version of that Petrova was referring as a 9-month program, then you will have those 2 terms. If you take the longer 12-month version, then you will have the 3 terms, which the one from January to March, then the new term in between, and then the one that goes from September till December. Petrova,
yes,
I don't know if you want to add anything or you want to correct that information because...
No, that's fine. I think we move on to another question about the January start. So does the January 2021 program for 12 months start in January 2021 till January 2022? It should finish in December, so 2021. So as far as I'm aware, it will finish in the same sort of the same year, but will last for that 12-month period. And then we have a final question about the English requirements. So other than the IELTS and the TOEFL home edition. So if you look on our website, you should see some entry requirements for Cambridge as well. So again, if you go to the website and you look under the English requirements under the banking and finance, it will list out the different qualifications that we accept, and there should be some Cambridge. And then also, if you got issues taking your IELTS in time because of COVID issues, just let our admissions department know and they'll work with you and give you the alternatives that they will accept, or how there is a workaround around that. So just for people from overseas that are having issues trying to secure their tests in time, and find out about pre-sessional as well. If there are no more questions, we have a few more minutes. You've asked, there has been quite a lot of conversation going back and forth, and which is fantastic. If there is anything else, you have a few minutes to put forward. Otherwise, we will finish the session.
Guys, we are here for you. I remember when I was applying for my master's program, I had lots of questions and I would have loved to have this opportunity. So we are a friendly bunch of people, so feel free. Don't look us at the intimidating professors. Just feel free to ask any questions or concerns that you might have. We are here to try to help you.
You can find our email details on the Center for Commercial Authorities website. Happy to receive questions by email, yes.
can you throw some light on the subjects taught in semester 3? There are different modules that will be taught in semester 3. I can talk about myself. I don't know my colleagues, but for example, in semester 3, I will be running 2 modules. One is on bank resolution and insolvency, which is deal with the financial stress in banking and financial institutions, the collapse of banks, run on banks, how we can prevent and make a banking sector more resilient to a crisis. And I'm also running there one on sovereign debt restructuring. What happens when countries accumulate too much debt? Pretty much what happens with Argentina when they become a serial defaulter, or how to cope with the current ongoing situation in Africa, or eventually what would happen if there is some ongoing litigation, like for example, what's going on in Venezuela, or what would happen for more developed countries like the UK that has issued from almost night to morning 200 billion of debt, or Italy, who used to already amass a big amount of debt, and then now as a result of the crisis, they have accumulated even more. So basically, discuss and exchange views as to how governments used to finance themselves and how they restructure. I know that, for example, there's also a course on law and economics that will be running in semester 3. I don't know, Ioannis or Catherine, if you are aware of any other modules which will be running in semester 3.
I am not running any more in semester 3, but this is something we could come back to. I don't know if Petrova, you have a list already, but we could come back to you on an email if you email us.
Okay, yeah, the modules are available. Please do look online on the website. If you click onto the program page, you will see a list of modules, and we have updated them to identify sort of which ones will be happening in which term. So that really is the best way to get. And if you do have any questions or any uncertainty about that, then you can email us directly, and the email details will be on the website. So we do understand that obviously modules are really important, and that's why you do the LLM, but the website will have the comprehensive list on there. Thank you.
There is one more. How about the test? Is it also online? Do you refer to the English test?
Or the exams for each of the modules once you're studying here in Queen Mary?
Yeah, I think they're referring to, the assessments at Queen Mary.
Why don't we try to answer the other two while this gets clarified? On the topic specific on debt restructuring of companies or corporations and project financing, yes, there are 2 modules. One is called Corporate Insolvency and Debt Restructuring, which deals precisely with the debts of corporations. I am responsible for running that module. That was the one that was referring that I co-teach with people from Freshfields. And then the one on project financing, that's run by a colleague of mine, Professor George Walker, who runs a module on international finance. And then the last question is from Clara. When do we have to choose the module? Do we have to choose all modules at the beginning of the year for semester 3 as well, for example? Clara, the semester 3 is something new to us. So basically, I think that pretty much the answer will be probably yes, but I think that there will also be opportunities to change as a result of the fact that there will be new entrants in January. So my suggestion will be, probably will be advisable to choose all your modules as soon as possible, and then eventually, if there's something that you need to change, I think that probably that would be my suggestion.